So now you have a point in the schedule for a little bit. You'd think it eases up. I think the Cardinals. Look, the Cardinals had a chance to really be buried early, and they kind of survived all that. They kept afloat. So now you'd think, at minimum, we're in for a fun summer where they're going to be in it, potentially add a little bit. Like, here's the thing. You have to be so freaking bad to be out of the wild card. You really have to be bad.
Yes, you do.
So I don't foresee the Cardinals having any type of stretch like we already saw in the first month of the season. So think about it. Even if they fall off a bit, they're only going to be, say, 3 games out of a wild card. I'm not saying they're a World Series contender. Cole is laughing. He has a comeback here. Look, I'm not saying the bar is very high. The bar has been lowered because of 3 wild cards. But it's not going to be last year, which is something.
Well, I can't guarantee that because I think the beginning of this season was so bad that it looked like last year all over again. And we saw last year where they started off terribly. They did have a week or 2 of really good baseball, and it looked like, okay, just a weird first month. And then they fell right back into it. And so, here we go, as you mentioned, that the schedule was lightening up a little bit. The schedule was pretty light when they were not doing so hot either. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen because we are now approaching the point. Once you hit All-Star Weekend, you kind of know what you are as far as how you're going to handle the trade deadline and stuff like that. So the schedule really is being squeezed here into the, it's like part 1 of the season and then part 2 is actually the playoff run. You got to complete part 1 before you even get to part 2. So this next month of baseball is going to be vital. And, of course, I have a personal interest in watching that Cardinals-Pirates series next week because I'm telling you this, if you lose to the Pirates, especially the way that they got erectile dysfunction, they can't finish at all.
Erectile dysfunction.
That is a big problem, and so I would
big problem for a lot of people.
I would anticipate that the Cardinals probably win that series, unfortunately. But
when's the trade deadline?
It is July. I think it's back to July 31st. It usually fluctuates.
You got 2 months.
It usually fluctuates between July 31st, maybe as far as August 2nd. But
what would you do right now if they were in the situation they keep winning and losing the way they are right now? Like what would you do if this was a trade deadline?
Well, they can be arbitrage mode. If they're winning and losing, then they can buy and sell.
What would you do?
I was just.
Who are you selling?
I was just being annoying.
Who are you selling?
Well,
who are you buying? Who are you selling? I don't know. I guess that's a dumb question right now.
No, it's not.
No, I guess at this point in the season, if the trade deadline were right now, if we're playing the hypothetical game,
July 30th.
Yeah.
Would you be like, let's go for this?
30.
Let's go for it?
Yeah, you would have to just because it's this early in the season. But
I mean, like you would have to because you're this close to kind of creeping up and getting in.
Well, I also think now we'll see what happens with Steven Matz. But if you have easy replacements, for example, 2 months from now, I think you can say with pretty good confidence the Cardinals should probably add a starter. And you can always find guys like that. The Cardinals have found guys that we didn't like who ended up being good. Happened last year. And they found some guys who were pretty dang good in Montgomery and Quintana. So to find some type of journeyman, and I'm not saying they're going to get Jack Flaherty, but somebody like that, like those guys, some guys who are good on some not great teams potentially, they're always going to be out there for the trade deadline. So it's pretty easy to add a starter. You almost always can use another reliever. We'll see what happens with the Cardinals outfield. You have some injuries right now. But, I mean, adding an outfielder, a corner outfielder, is not difficult. Look, the Braves freaking won the World Series.
Without Acuna.
They added 4 outfielders that year. They added Duvall, Soler, Peterson,
Rosario,
and they won the World Series. Like you can find now, it might be a 32-year-old starting pitcher with a 4.5 ERA, but you can find that guy easily, and you can find a corner outfielder who probably doesn't hit for a great average, but can hit 25 homers.
Yeah, so they're probably in light buyer mode, as Charlie said, the Lesters and the Haps of the world, and so that's probably where you're at, being like a kind of a 500 team. This isn't exactly the season so far where you would want to sell the farm and go all out to close out the World Series this year, because that's probably not going to happen. But, you're still in contention, so this would be one of those. If they are at where they are right now at the end of July, you'll probably see them be light buyers. Just add a piece or two. Hopefully it works out, but you don't want to be anywhere near like talking like, all right, we're shipping away Tank Hens to get the biggest bring in Juan Soto because because we think we're winning a World Series, but just to ensure that we're going to win the World Series, as much as you can ensure that you're going to win a World Series. Obviously, you can't, but to the best of your abilities, we're bringing in the biggest fish in the pond. That they're
like Victor Scott and all those guys.
Yeah, they're not going to be in that position where they're giving up some of their biggest. They're not going to be mortgaging the future to go all in on this year. Because it's just not that type of year.
And they're not so bad. Like, if they were really bad, if they had the same record as last year, you could legitimately start to make the declarations of, okay, do you trade a Paul Goldschmidt? Would it make sense? Now, we're also talking about guys who aren't having great years in Goldie and Arenado. But if the Cardinals were bad, that Pandora's box really gets open. But, like, Paul Goldschmidt now has, after an awful start, has an OPS plus of 89. So he's getting close to league average. I would bet you that 2 months from now, he's probably league average.
Yeah.
And it's to the point where the Cardinals, in the middle of when I say air quotes, playoff run, even if it's a wild card run, they're not going to trade Paul Goldschmidt. They're not going to trade Nolan Arenado. If they're tied in the wild card, or if they're, whatever, one game back, they're not going to have any type of sell-off.
No way. Especially not big names. So we might get the doomsday scenario or my biggest dream, depending on which mode of my brain I'm using. Paul Goldschmidt, if we get to the end of the year, did they re-sign him?
Ooh, I don't know.
Did they bring him back? Did they extend him?
Did you see
what's going to happen?
You see, like, Newbar's kind of in the mix with he's getting a little pissy here and there, some of the yumps. And, I mean, he was right, though. Like, I think it was
all three.
All three. And Newt starts saying something from the bench, and then one of the umps says, he's batting 204 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Chirped Newt a little bit. Was it 204? What's he batting?
Something like that.
Something not good.
220.
220-ish. He's batting 220. Stop bitching. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
But all three of those pitches were wide.
Way wide.
All three.
Way wide. God, that happens so much. All right, 573. I'm going to read some of your texts. You've been going off on Jordan Hicks. Hicks will be an all-star this year with a low ERA. Mo fails again. Jordan Hicks wasn't good enough for Mo. I think of one. I'm taking a coffee break on the farm, okay? But I do believe we are seeing better product on the field. We are starting to see players come in and start shining to be stars. Also, remember this of Gorman. He hits home runs in bunches. Mm-hmm. Finally moved into the lineup position where he should always be. Hitting again is about one thing. Hands back, cocked, and ready to fire. Arraez watches every pitch into the catcher's mitt. He follows everything. He does not have wasted motion. He makes hitting easy and simple. Because his hands are back and he can still then follow the ball all day. He is the best I've ever seen since Wade Boggs. Our win has these traits. Gorman does. Carpenter still does. Herrera, with his odd movement, gets his hands back and ready before the pitch. Jordan Walker has to learn this. Hands back, cocked, and ready to fire.
Did he just hit a home run over the weekend, by the way?
I hope so. What?
Cocked.
Yeah, cocked.
I think.
What'd I say?
Hope I'm not mistaken.
No, hands cocked. The guy said it about 3 times.
Yeah, like he's letting. Tell me one more time. What do? Hands cocked. Get ready to fire.
You brought up Goldschmidt. And let's just say hypothetically you thought, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense for the Cardinals to re-sign Paul Goldschmidt. He's aging. He's on the decline. You have some guys in a Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman who could potentially, if you wanted to, take some of these corner infield positions. How you feeling now about Jordan Walker? Like, let's say last year the Cardinals in their brain said, well, when Paul Goldschmidt leaves, our plan is potentially to have Jordan Walker be the first baseman in the future. How you feeling about that now?
Yeah, you're not getting power. You're already not getting power from the outfield positions. He's struggling to hit home runs either at the minor league level or the major league level. That's not very inspiring if now your outfield and your first base positions aren't giving you any power. And I'm not even one of these guys who is obsessed with positional power, but that's typically where it comes from. And you have a big power hitter at second base in Nolan Gorman, or as 573 Coffee on the Farm, whatever nickname he decides to give to himself, as he just laid out, hitting home runs in spurts.
Cocked back, ready to fire?
Yeah.
Hands cocked.
Hands cocked.
By the way, one more thing. It's going to be really interesting to see how Cardinals fans react when Jordan Hicks, Austin Gomber, and potentially Jack Flaherty are all All-Stars this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but in Coors Field, Austin Gomber's ERA is below 3. That's pretty impressive.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that the Rockies won the trade, so don't do anything crazy like that. It's just fun.
Where are the Cardinals at right now? Where'd they go?
In what?
Where are they at now?
In what?
What city are they in? Who are they playing?
Oh, they are in Houston.
Houston. Mm-hmm. Houston's been struggling.
So we got the
too.
Pat Neshek special. The Cardinals got the Phillies and the Astros back-to-back.
Nice.
The Pat Neshek special.
There you go.
And that Gomber, look, you got Nolan Arenado. I know it is fun.
Yes. The Rockies didn't win the trade. The Cardinals did. But it's still funny, and I'm gonna needle you a little bit.
They also got $50 million.
Yeah.
The Goldschmidt deal was the one they gave up really nothing.
Yeah, Carson Kelly, Luke Weaver, and who?
I don't know
Who's
how
the
those
third
guys
one?
doing right now.
So Luke Weaver has
None of them
had
are
a
on that
little
team.
bit of a
Right.
comeback as a reliever.
Yeah, but
Carson Kelly, who was he playing for the other day? He played against the Cardinals couple weeks ago.
I don't know.
I'll look at
It's
it.
the Angels, maybe?
Sounds possible.
Perhaps. But, yeah, Luke Weaver's comeback, whatever, it did not come with the Diamondbacks, so they got nothing. And I'm pretty sure the third guy never even made it to the Major League level.
Carson Kelly, Tigers.
Tigers, that's right. Let's see here. We are a better team, still under 500, but I think it's time to move Goldschmidt and Arenado and move Gorman to third, Burleson to first, and Donovan to second. Why move Goldie and Arenado now? We could be dangerous with another tier 1 pitcher.
I don't
Or, well, you know what? The Cardinals have flexibility next year to do a lot. They really do. They have a lot of starting pitchers on one-year deals. What happens with Goldschmidt? Right now, look, still the Cardinals would have to see Paul Goldschmidt be really bad, I think, to not re-sign him. And I understand if people hearing that are going to say, well, why the hell would we re-sign him? But if Paul Goldschmidt gets back to being above average this year, don't you think they still re-sign him? I'm not saying they should. I'm saying they will. Especially, again, if Jordan Walker, if some of these younger guys, even though, look, you like Burleson, I think you kind of know what you got with Gorman. Very streaky, tons of power. But if you were thinking that Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman were going to be cornerstone all-stars pretty quickly, you're dialing that back. You're dialing that back, and you're thinking, okay, maybe 2 more years of Paul Goldschmidt at a lesser contract.
All right.
Is not the worst thing in the world.
Oh, Cole.
I'm not saying they should do
happen.
that, but I bet you they do it.
Walker's the reason, too, man. Like,
And
it's
I hope
true.
they do. I hope they do sign Goldschmidt to 2 more years. Go ahead. Have a 39-year-old first baseman. Go ahead.
Okay, but after a horrible start, we just looked it up. He has an 89 OPS plus.
Mm-hmm.
There's about 100 games to go, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Let's say he finishes the year with a 110 OPS plus, which is very, very possible. You don't think they re-sign him?
No, I think they do.
I'm not saying they
But-
should. I think they will.
He'd have to play some really good baseball to reach 110 by the end of the year.
With 100 games left? I mean, dude, he was horrible for the first month. And he's
All right.
already – he might be if he hits 3 homers in a week, he's probably league average pretty quickly.
And maybe I'm underestimating how quickly he can turn that around. But, look, if they re-sign him, all I'm telling you is that the decline ever since the MVP year, he has stooped lower than he was before that. So the MVP year was great a couple years ago. He was like – it was like death taxes and Paul Goldschmidt getting an extra base hit. He was incredible that year. But he's, 36 years old now? Maybe he might even be 37 now. I'm not sure. But you start investing in those years, 38 and 39, just because he's okay now and he figured it out now. It's all
Come on, Walker.
It's all musical chairs. It's
Come
all
on,
it's all
Walker.
hot potato. Who's gonna be holding the bag?
Figure it out.
At the end of the day, don't let it be you.
So
Figure
what
it
do you
out.
think? What do you think the extension would look like? Right now, is he making 26?
26. And
I
then
was saying-
his extension would not be 26, obviously.
I was thinking 2 years, 36 total. Don't you think it's something in that ballpark?
Yeah, but even then, I still think one of those years has to be horrible.
32 million. I think it's something in that. I don't know if he gets 20 million. with the way he's fallen off, but I think it's going to be something of that ilk. Maybe they don't do it. Hey, maybe the Cardinals finally learn from the Carpenter extension and the Miles Michaelis.
Yeah.
Maybe they learn from it. But
don't get high on your own supply.
Learn? Yeah, don't get high on your own supply.
Think about it. If you don't sign him, that's a free $26 million. That's a lot of money that you can go in a lot of different directions. And if you just bring him back for $18 million, well, you just cut out how much? What percentage of that asset would that be? We'll say we'll round a little bit and say 67%. That's 67% of the money. $26 million is a lot of money. And if you cut out 67% of that just to give him a 2-year extension, knowing that one of those years, if not both, is going to be bad, just for the sake of what? Because he won you an MVP, just for the sake of keeping him around? Like, don't do the Eli Manning treatment that the Giants did, where they just kept him around and around and around, and then eventually it's like, well, geez, I guess we have to draft a quarterback now.
I think it's different, though. It's different if he's bad, if he's actually bad. But if the Cardinals said, okay, and again, I know I cite OPS plus too much, but I just think it's
I
easy.
love that stat.
I think if the Cardinals said, look, in year 1 of the extension, if he's 115 OPS plus, and year 2 he's league average, I think that's what they would expect. I think that's about what they would expect. And again, this also comes down to, what is Jordan Walker doing? What is Nolan Gorman doing? It's also about, who are you replacing them with? Like, for a couple years, I've loved the Cardinals' young position players on paper. And then what's happening to these guys? I mean, now it's like, Alec Burleson was always the guy that, we're going to trade him to the A's. Now you love Alec Burleson.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's been a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
And Jordan Walker, God knows what's going to happen with him. Nolan Gorman, I think, is more volatile than most people thought, right? Don't you think there was going to be a little more consistency with Nolan Gorman? So, look, you got some injuries. I don't know. The crop of position players, after this year, there's been a lot of guys that have taken a step back that we all expected them to take a step forward. And I'm talking about pretty much everybody. Throw Donovan and Newt Barr. I mean, Mason Wynn has been unbelievable this year.
Lights out.
But I'm talking about kind of the guys that were more in year 2 or 3, even Dylan Carlson. I don't really expect anything from Dylan Carlson.
Is he just...
But I just mentioned like 5 or 6 names, and the only guys, don't you think it's fair to say, the only guys that you've said right now are a plus are Wynn and Burleson from that group, right? Yeah. Everybody else, is it fair to say, has been either status quo or taken either a slight step backward or a major step backward in the case of Jordan Walker.
I would say Dylan Carlson's the most disappointing, right?
But I also think, I agree with you, but I feel like with Dylan Carlson, we're on about year 3 of this. So, like, I didn't expect Dylan Carlson to take a jump like I did Donovan, Gorman, Newt Barr.
Yeah. What's Tommy Edmonds' deal?
What is his deal?
What's going on with him, dude?
Still not around.
Damn, dude.
And then Keenan Middleton, I just saw John Denton tweeted about how he's meeting with the Tommy John specialist.
Oh, I saw that too.
So,
damn.
I don't know what that means.
Well,
it ain't good.
It ain't good.
But I know it doesn't mean that he's about to show up on the field in the ballpark this week.
What it means is he probably won't throw a pitch for the Cardinals.
Yeah, so there's a
you had to bet on it.
$5 million down the drain.
Also, but that one, I can't crush them for that. Relievers are weird, man.
I know.
Yeah.
You know?
They really are.
There's a lot of volatility with relievers, too.
Which is why I have flipped my opinion. Anything that you heard me say on this radio show about how they should have signed Josh Hader, I take it all back. I have since developed the opinion that relievers are not a good long-term investment. And just, you know what? It's so random. Bring in a bunch of random ones.
Yeah.
That's what they tried this year. And you hit on, 1-year deals.
Yeah. And JoJo Romero is like one of the best relievers in the National League.
He's pretty dang good.
And he probably...
Pretty dang good.
He's all-star material as of right now.
They look good last night.
Like I said, who knows what could happen with relievers. He could explode.
And
Andrew Kitch has been really good.
Yep.
Because I was on vacation, I was not locked into the broadcast of the game. So I don't know if Mosaic, I'm sure he talked also like on Bally's. But I got the clip from Martin interviewed Mosaic last Saturday. So not this past. We're talking almost 10 days ago for the Fox broadcast. And I don't know if you guys heard this. I put it on my YouTube so you could play it. It sounded like a guy. And then I was texting with Martin. I was like, what do you think he meant by saying some of these things? It sounded like a guy who was kind of ready to be done. And when I say ready to be done, like had kind of accepted whatever his role is next year, which still could be the president of baseball operations, or if kind of there was a slight step backward for his replacement to come in and take more responsibility. But he said things like, because Martin asked him, what do you think you're going to do? We know you're not going to get fired. And John Mozeliak said, well, I'm going to take some time away because I've never really had a vacation. And he's like, I'll take a break, have a reset, and then figure out, do I want to do something basically with the Cardinals? Do I want to do something with another team? It was for the first time, it sounded like a guy who was really kind of ready to transition out of that
It's
role.
a lot of pressure, man. That guy's probably aged over the past 10 years.
I know, but I had never – and people need to go watch the interview to kind of see what I'm talking about. We can play some of it. I think it's 4 minutes. It's kind of long. But it's the first time I really heard him openly discussing the next chapter, like we're kind of ready to move on. That's how I
thought. Is there a perfect ending for you? You've got another year on your contract. You're not getting fired. I know that may disappoint some folks, but that's not happening. Is there a way? What do you see next for you? Are you a senior advisor? What do you think is likely?
I don't know what's next for me because I'm really just focused on the here and now. At some point, I think the most important thing would just be to step away for a little bit. I'm not someone that's really had an extended vacation in the last 30 years. I'm not someone that's been really to kind of be able to just do something on my own time. So maybe a mini sabbatical, if you will, of some form, and then try to reset myself, recharge, and whether it's part of the Cardinals or something else, I don't know. But my home's in St. Louis, so I wouldn't mind sticking around.
Where do you think he lives? South County or something like that? His home? Does he live out by you think? Arnold?
I doubt it.
Well, I doubt it too.
I think he's
Where does he live?
probably
no clue.
Frontenac.
somewhere in the neighborhood of
Looks like
Ladue or Creve Coeur or
Imagine he just lives in this small, humble abode.
Wildwood. We learned that
Number
that's the
one.
number one ranked place to raise a family, and he has
Number
2 kids.
one.
I
Number
think his kid
one.
goes to Villanova. I think his son.
He looks like he's got handlebars growing. Hey, or am I just looking too
No,
far?
that's
Is
a
that, is he got a
beard.
goatee or is it a? Oh,
John
he's got a-
Mozeliak has a fantastic beard, and that is just
He
a fact.
does?
I think so.
Interesting.
I think he looks better with the beard.
I never noticed it.
I think the salt and pepper look is a good look on folks.
It looks like he's got his handlebars going, like Goldberg.
What'd you think of that, though? You think kind of what I said? Well, I mean, when you say, I'm kind of, and again, this could be after next year.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about sabbatical, reset, recharge, I don't know what I'm going to do in terms of my future. It's time for a vacation. That was the first time where, and look, I know a couple years ago he said, look, after 2025, I'm going to be done. So I don't know if it happens early, but that was the first time it really felt to me like John Mozeliak, he's going to be done. And maybe he does take a break and he wants to go to another team and do it again.
Or
Who
maybe he
knows?
wants to chill out and spend some money
And
and sit on a beach.
I was adjusting audio level, so I may have missed the preface of the question. But was that pertaining to this upcoming offseason or after 2025?
He said, Martin posed the question of, what do you see the perfect ending of your career? And he said, you're not going to get fired, which is true. We all know. He's not going to be fired. But again, could it be all of a sudden, like let's say they announce Mo's replacement, which is not something crazy at all. The Cardinals like to have stability in place. Could they not announce Mo's replacement this offseason and kind of have them work together for the final year?
Yeah, I could see that. Something like that. That wouldn't
That
shock me
makes sense.
entirely. But I do want to give John Mozeliak a little bit of leeway here because he was asked this question. And so, I feel like that's something that we do where, somebody gives a statement on something and then it's like we're reading a lot into it. It's like, well, they were asked, so that's why they're thinking about it. But, yeah, that's definitely sounded like something where it's crossed his mind a little bit. I know that he said that he likes to live in the here and now, but it's not like he had no answer. So this definitely isn't the first time. And I assume he's married.
I believe so.
So I assume that his wife has probably asked him about this before. So I assume
She's
that
probably like, I want to live a normal life for at least a year.
Yeah.
Do nothing. You know what I mean? Just get away from baseball for a bit.
I feel like that's something that a lot of people do, especially the people who are in like
Dude, hell yeah, I would.
in coaching,
man.
in this case, just as an executive in sports, is
but Cole,
they convince themselves that it's like, you know what, I need to get back to the family. I need to get back. Like Bruce Arians did this. Like when he retired from the Arizona Cardinals as the head coach, he did this long. Well, I shouldn't say long, but he did this post-game speech. He basically retired in the press conference at the end of the last game of the season and was talking about how his wife said that, our son just turned 40, and he was like, whoa, man, look how much time I missed. I need to get back to the family. He spent 1 year.
Too late now. He's 40 years old.
He spent 1 year there. He spent 1 year in the booth for CBS, and then he went back to coaching the Buccaneers.
That's what happens.
Yes.
See, they're like, I need family time. And then they go hang out with their family, and they're like, I don't like this. I want to get back in the mix.
And exactly. And so they're like, they get
All
that
the
itch
time.
again. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if John Mozeliak kind of goes that route where he's out of the game, as you just said, Charlie, that he possibly is out of the game for a year or two and then gets back in the mix in some capacity with some organization. I'm sure the Cardinals would love to have him around here as some sort of maybe he flips with Heimblum. Maybe he becomes the advisor.
He does 590 radio with us.
Yeah, he can sit right there. He can replace Jim on this show because Jim's
Whoa.
Whoa!
Hey,
Wow.
Whoa!
Jim's here half the time.
Whoa!
John would be free.
Clip that off, actually, for yourself.
John Mozeliak's going to replace Jim on this show?
Yeah.
There you go.
As a full-time host?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be fun.
The Cardinals' brain trust's obsession with legacy players is absolutely detrimental to this team and their success. How about Chuck mentioning a Goldie extension without even looking at what first baseman free agents may be available after this season, who are comparable to Goldie and much cheaper? In the legacy player obsession, good Lord.
Wait.
So who is it?
Hold on. Time out.
Are they going to sign Pete Alonso?
End
No.
it.
I almost brought up that name, and then I saw that his batting average was way lower than I thought it was. And I also just don't think he's going to age well for some reason.
Just so everybody knows.
He's strong.
Whoever they get, let's say they, and by the way, I didn't even say they should. I said they probably will if Paul Goldschmidt, if he gets back to respectability this year. The other free agents they would go after are probably the Rhys Hoskins of the world. They're probably kind of like Paul Goldschmidt, right? They might be a little younger. They might be 32. They're not gonna sign a $100 million first baseman. They're just not.
Why is Matt Carpenter back on this squad? I actually asked earlier this season, and I haven't gotten an answer. Why is he back on the squad?
Leadership.
D wants to know.
Which,
What's up, D?
who knows?
Is that a spot where Walker could be playing or at least be up here? The outfield looks so suspect, and I don't see a great defense out there at all. Big D. He ain't happy.
No.
You don't want Walker up here playing twice a week.
No.
He needs to figure it out. Jordan Walker needs to figure out his
Yes,
offense
he does.
in a big way.
That's like Mason Wynn next year.
By the way,
Like setback, it'd be weird. That happens.
Except for, yes, but Mason Wynn's this year has been way better. I mean,
Than
Jordan
Jordan
Walker was
Walker's
pretty
last
good
year.
last year.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but he was sent down. He ended up having a nice average-ish year offensively. Wasn't good defensively, but Mason Wynn has been amazing.
Let Goldie walk. Put Nato at first base and Gorman at third. They have Donovan, Edmond, Sagasi, Furman to fill second. J-Row, what up, baby? What's up with you?
wait, hold on. So back to Wombat's text.
Go ahead.
He said,
Neil's coming in, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, let's. Is he walking around?
I
Yeah.
got one more thing for you. Okay, so he says, how about Chuck mentioning a Goldie extension without even looking at what a first baseman free agent would be available who are comparable to
baby?
Goldie and much cheaper? Who's going to be cheaper?
Oh, they'll be cheaper,
and
guys.
be comparable.
Hit the rock.
He's old. Anybody
They're
who's
all old.
Anybody who's comparable is going to be more expensive because they're younger.
But again, what did Rhys Hoskins sign for? There could be somebody like that.
16 a year.
And he's probably,
Perhaps.
what? Is he 30, 31-ish?